When you build something and someone buys it and they move into the house, it's quite an experience and you never get tired of that.
We've got a great chat today with Reinier Van Loggerenberg, who's the CEO of Craft Homes, massive development business in the residential space. Reinier's been with him for 10 years. The business has been around for 35 years.
You can't make an instant garden. You start small, but it will grow and it will carry on. I go back to our developments often and then I realize, what a magnificent job we did.
He's going to come chat to us about the Big Red Wall campaign in Bryanston, which was quite a marketing feat.
Initially, it was really just to draw a bit of attention, and then suddenly we realized that it's all good that we're doing this red wall, but how are we going to end it in a way that sort of makes sense? You have to do it because otherwise you keep on debating what you're going to do and you never get it done. Somebody has to commit, and if it doesn't work, change. Not doing anything, that's scary.
Welcome to the Corner Office, where we bring you the latest news from the world of commercial real estate, the greatest voices in the industry, and the corporate chats you've been missing. Let's get to it.
Reinier, I'm really interested to chat about Craft Homes, but mainly because there's been so much going on in the market and you guys have seemed to have been involved in a number of different projects. And like we were saying now, all the projects are kind of at once. So what I want to know is, these projects are massive. I mean, I was recently doing some renovations at home and it's almost driven me nuts to try and get the thing done. You guys are doing several. Is it just like a big project planning session that you get into, or is the team just there and focused and just delivering? How does everyone kind of make it happen? Surely it's just one at a time would be better.
So I think we've got quite a big team and some projects take longer than others to get off the ground. But a high-rise development is very much like a commercial development. You are fortunate to have a whole professional team involved. So it's not necessarily own staff, but you've got great architects, a QS, a lot of guys involved in the team. Those projects tend to be easier to do, seeing that you've got quite a big residential team assisting you. But on other developments, which is the normal duplex development, our team over the past 10, 11 years have really built up great skill, and we sort of learn from, we call it lessons learned from previous developments, what to improve, what not to do again. And that makes it quite easy to get going with a lot of projects. Unfortunately, I think if we had the choice, we would have had our developments scattered over the year. But as you know, you in the industry, you get going when you get going. The council's got certain requirements. But ultimately for us, there's never a better time to put a development in the market than immediately.
Immediately. The land costs money.
No, of course.
Let's go back to the beginning. Where did Craft Homes start?
So we were initially called Sable Homes. It was part of the Apcon Group, the development company. And I think about 6-7 years ago, we rebranded to Craft Homes. There was some change in our shareholding. And
were you around? You obviously around Sable Homes time,
so. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've been around 10 years in the group and specifically at Craft Homes.
Yeah.
So we rebranded to Craft Homes. I think it was at the time Sable Home was more focused on rental stock, and we wanted to be a more consumer-facing development company. So that's where the name Craft Homes comes. Something that's sort of crafted for the market.
Yeah.
And from there, we've been doing less rental developments. Although recently, I must say, there's been an influx of rental that we're doing on our side. But that's really where the journey became. The business is 32 years old this year. So a lot of IP in our company. Know Joburg very well. So, we've been fortunate to...
Who started Sable back then? Who were the sort of...
So it was a grouping of shareholders. So it was the Nash family, Paul Nash, Dace and Dave, which is in Craft Homes. And of course, at the time, the MD there was Joe Pelser. So I'm sort of he was my predecessor.
Yeah, you've taken over from him,
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So looking back to the sort of history of the business, I've seen a big change in residential, specifically with more focused residential, what they call multifamily. You guys are now starting to invest quite heavily in multifamily, into the rental stock that you're talking about. But it wasn't always like this. You got a couple of private guys, playing around the periphery. And then in the last, 10 years, I'd say there've been a lot more focus where you've got the likes of Transcends. I mean, IHS was obviously, we can go back to the mid-2000s, early 2000s even. But then you've got the Transcends coming in and you've got more and more, even Eris entering the fray. How and where did Sable start from? Was it all to build into rental stock, or was there development and traded into the market, or how has it sort of evolved from where it started 30 years ago, which would have been late 90s, right? Yeah. To today? What was the start?
So if you go back in the history of our group, actually, which is, I think, 43 years this year, the company was actually called AB Construction, which was a construction business.
Yes, yeah.
And some of the first projects they did was residential, but as a contractor. And from there, the development company evolved into a commercial development company, and then they separated the residential company and then actually became a residential developer. I think broadly speaking, in the residential space, maybe it wasn't necessarily well known in more the commercial spheres where people communicate, but in the residential space specifically, it's a consumer-facing company. You actually just know the end user. You don't really know the shareholder that's behind the development company. But if you think about someone like Summercon, those are big companies. They really changed the face of the northern suburbs of Johannesburg back in the day. So importantly saying that maybe now...
Where was Summercons were probably like early 2000s, right?
Yeah, they've I think even before that.
You probably go back and find they had their original company and all the rest of it, but it kind of like really started to brand themselves and put out these larger developments, from what I can recall at least.
Specifically because I think most of it, residential development companies brand the estate. They don't necessarily go on the back of the company. So they'd say it's called the Willows, and people would know the Willows. They wouldn't know that the actual developer is Craft specifically.
Yes.
But that's changed specifically because I think consumers become more and more conscious about where they buy the product from.
Quality, right?
The developer, is there accountability? Can you contact them after 5 or 10 or 6 years or whatever and ask them?
Even delivery risk. Just delivery risk is one. Yeah.
So that's where it's become more important to sort of put the brand out there. And to your point, you're saying about the whole multifamily movement that's happening, it's more institutional money that's being invested into residential. But because I think there's a massive housing demand in various of the different sectors, so in the more affordable space, even in high luxury developments, if you look at what's going on in Cape Town specifically, there's a broad demand for residential. So, and that's why it's really getting the attention of funds, and they want to diversify and invest.
So then let's break the market down from, you've got the guys focusing on, building maybe a smaller apartment block type of thing, maybe a renovation even of an apartment block. You've got your then freehold residential buildings, then you've got your larger freehold residential buildings. And then it starts to go into sort of almost developer territory where you're starting to build out the different platforms and offerings that people have. Run us through where it goes from there, both in terms of the stock built for sale into the market, or properties built for sale into the market, and properties built to hold. How do these differ? How would you differ from one that you build to sell into the market and one that you build to hold? How do you look at the two?
The actual site itself depends on what the best purpose of the site is. And of course, it depends on who your investor is. So us as a business, we are one of few residential companies that cater for either a shareholder that wants to hold rental stock or someone that's got a great piece of land. They want to sell out the development and sort of get their cash back. But in sort of exploring your question, how do you define what site actually determines whether it's rental or sale? I think it's mostly market driven. So in our business, we're a sales company. We like building developments to sell, of course, because otherwise if we keep on holding all our stock, we'll run out of money and shareholders.
Yeah.
So we want to sell. But the big thing is market demand determines that in an area. So I can use an example. We've got a great development called the Marksman in Midrand. That area has historically been known as a really good rental market. You've got a lot of people as first-time home buyers or wanting to buy their first home that started off in Waterfall because of that massive variety. You centrally located, you're close to where your work is. So I think it's an income-driven demand. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of job opportunities and it's a low point of entry into the residential market, people tend to want to rent. Doesn't mean in that area you can't sell as well. So I think that's quite an important thing. We've got another development like the Hive, which we were talking about here.
Yeah, here in Rosebank. Yeah.
There you'll find a lot of purchasers buying units there to build up their own personal small portfolio of 5 or 6 rental units. So again, it's somebody buying stock from you, but they intend to rent the unit out to the market. So I can't say that there's a magic formula to work out whether it's going to be rental or sales.
And your building spec, does it differ?
So we've defined ourselves as a business not to necessarily make any, because someone renting or someone buying, they want the same things. Everyone wants something nice and it must look good and it must be good quality. So as a business, we don't try and differentiate between a rental stock and a sales stock, ultimately, because our intention is to sell the units after all. But if it's price driven, specifically, we tend to rather look at the size of the unit. So I'd much rather in craft homes go and build a smaller unit at the right price point with great finishes, instead of building a nice size unit but then skimping on finishes. So we try and navigate that and rather determine the right size.
So then let's look at a piece of land. I mean, you guys obviously take land from almost like sort of agricultural through the rezoning and build it up to what it should be, or you take it as residential and perhaps it's residential 1 and you change that to a higher zoning where you have more and more bulk, ability to develop more, etc. When you look at that, how are you trying to price your land? Because they'll talk about that sort of opportunity costs of the, let's say, 100 units that you're going to build, and you need to price that at the right level so you know that you're going to get a lot of activity between 1.1 million and 1.2 million. Once it goes past 1.2 million, you start to lose the market. So now you have to buy the land based on your, obviously, development cost in order to make a profit. You need to buy the land at a level. And obviously, yes, you want to get it as cheap as possible. But what is an acceptable level, percentage-wise, of what your selling price is? Is starting to be the max?
Yes, I think you sort of answered the question to some extent. So how we would determine the land value is based on what the selling price is of the unit. So, of course, there's immense amount of information in the market about a specific area in current second-hand stock on the market. So first we'll go and we'll determine what is the value of that second-hand stock. And of course, you'd know if you buy a new unit, you don't have transfer costs, you don't have bond costs. So you can slightly increase your price based on that. And then as an opportunity cost, you would say if that unit sells at 2 million Rand, we tend to go around 10% of that sales price as a cost per opportunity. So where the trick comes in, though, is that the landowner, who obviously wants maximum for his land, has to take responsibility for the fact whether the site's serviced or not serviced. So we tend to then include the land, the servicing of the opportunity inside that land cost.
Gotcha.
And that's quite important, because if you own a site on the corner of Bompas and Oxford and you are right next to bulk services, then you should get the benefit as a loan owner because that services are right next to you. But if you own a land right out by Steyn City and you don't have the bulk services available, then of course it's going to cost more to actually service your cost per opportunity. So that formula has worked well. It actually compensates whether you sit with a prime piece of land at Sea Point where you can sell the unit at 10 million, then your opportunity cost is a million Rand. So that formula works well. And same, it also goes to the lower spectrum. If you're selling a unit at 700,000, that 70,000 Rand per opportunity serviced works well. So that sort of formula works for us. And I think the reason why we've got a lot of experience in that specifically is, again, as a development company, we mostly develop for other shareholders. We develop for a landowner or an investor that comes with equity and say, listen, I need to diversify my family portfolio. I want to do residential. And that's sort of been our place to play in the market. We develop on behalf of other people.
So talking about that then, your business model. Is that your business model, to identify pockets, interesting pockets you like to develop, bring those shareholders in and then run with them on the project? So they come in, they almost contribute their land into the SPV,
yes,
and you develop the top structure and there's some kind of profit sharing arrangement. Is that the business model?
I would say 90% of our developments is like that.
Okay.
We also have a fund, a rezo fund. So there's private investors that invested into the fund. We go and acquire land parcels. We go through the whole zoning process with our own internal town planners. And then we determine what product we're going to do, and we also sell it off to the market. So we construct, of course. So we've got the full value-added services in our business, and so that's one model. Or the other one is someone's got a great land parcel. I think Rob Wilkie's property, and that we're talking about Rosebanks, is a unique example.
Yeah.
Rob and Ivan acquired the land, I think, probably 10 years ago. And we're basically doing a development agreement for them there, designed it, take it to the market, assist them with getting the funding in place, and sell the units. So
amazing.
Great model.
So effectively, so I'm a landowner and I want to come and work with you guys, right? So I've got the piece of land. I bought it 10 years ago, whatever it is, and it's sitting and it doesn't have the right zoning. And we engage, and you say to me, okay, well, here's a development agreement. We are going to take it and run with it from here. What is that agreement? How does that agreement work? What does it sort of say? And what do you take it through everything? The rezoning, the marketing phase, the planning, the feasibility phase, everything. Yeah. Do you have a drop dead where you can say it's not going to work, we're out? Or do you actually investigate that feasibility and almost commit yourselves at that point? Or what do I get as the landowner coming to work with you guys?
So I think it's like any partnership. We own a piece of land across Monty Casino behind the Monty commercial development.
Yeah.
We've been busy with that land development for over 6 years, and it's changed in various forms. We've had a lot of environmental things to resolve with town planning sorted out. So I think the important thing is it's more a commitment in the beginning with the landowner and saying to him, we're going to develop the best possible development on your land parcel, but understand we need to go through the rezoning, we need to get the services in place, and that takes 2 years at least in Johannesburg. And then 2 years, the market has shifted. And at that point in time, you need to understand what is still the best product at that point in time for the market. Then we've got a basic feasibility that we run, and we sort of track that feasibility through the process, and we ensure that landowner is part of the process. You can say he's the quasi-developer. He ultimately makes the decision. Does he like the aesthetics? Does it make sense? Is this what he wants to see for the land? Is the return good enough? So I think the important thing is taking that partner of yours with you on the journey. And then time flies, and before you know it, you break ground and you start with construction.
And then how does it work in terms of the metrics? So let's say this owner has his piece of land. It's worth 10 million rand. He has funded 50% of it. Okay. So he still owes money into this thing. Do you sell this thing into the JV? Then do you restructure the financing? Because obviously from a development perspective, from what my understanding of development, typically what happens is you go and raise development funding, in which period they're going to roll up your interest and they roll up everything until such a point where you convert to senior, and then effectively that becomes a fully funded development. And either you're going to sell that out and so you de-risk yourself. Alternatively, you hold and you've got to rent that thing out, right? What is the landlord's contribution calculated on? His net equity value into the JV, and then how is yours calculated? Your net equity value into the JV, or just how much is geared, or is it a predetermined structure? Or I'm just trying to get a sense of like.
So I would say there's not one fixed model.
Got you.
Every development's got a different setup. Timing's different. The land values differ slightly. The expectation of when the development will be completed is different. The intention of it's different. So I think the important thing is to be able to mold the development that it makes sense for both partners. From our point of view, we've got multiple developments where we are fee driven. So we've got a fee for delivering a service, like you paid an engineer or an architect. But in most cases, we also want to have skin in the game. We also want to participate in the development. That gives you just that certainty that we are aligned in the outcome of the development. But generally, I would say because your bank funding is 80% debt funded, 20% equity, your land value gets close to 10% of that. So in theory, we would add an additional 10% equity, and we match each other in equity. The rest is bank funded. And then, of course, you've got the guarantees that you have to put in place to get your bank funding. So it's a product of all those elements. Fortunately, I think because we've done so many developments, residential development, we've got great rapport with the banks. They know us. They know how our processes work. They know the quality of our build. So I do believe we bring a benefit to an external party going with us as a development partner, because you just get better terms, a better view from the bank, which is important.
And so, I mean, in your career, you must have seen a dog show or two, things really just don't go right, Run me through some of those stories. Like, I'm interested. Where you things you just like, this is lacquer, and then it's like, oh my God, this is turning into an absolute nightmare.
Residential is not like brain surgery.
Yes.
If you make a mistake in residential, you can fix it. I think that's the first thing. And your approach is quite important in residential, because the quicker you respond to, or the quicker you realize you've made a mistake or you need to change something, you can go and do that. So we tend to, in our business, talk about not making mistakes, because for us, it's only completed and successful when we've completed it. So the moment you say it's a mistake, because confidence in your product is what sells it at the end of the day. Yeah. And if you start wondering whether you make the right decision, you didn't make the right decision, then your chances are
you must go with momentum.
So
you must go with momentum.
You need that momentum. So and during that process, we've made many issues where we've realized we should have made a bathroom bigger, or it's facing the wrong way, or funny things. You need to
roll
address
with it
and change it, and not be afraid to break down and start over. This says often to us, you mustn't fall in love with a land parcel and think it's just so perfect and so beautiful. And the same is for a product. Don't get overexcited and over committed to a specific. Be open to change, and of course take a lot of influence from the market. Some of the most important changes we've made in our business comes from a client that just came in on a Saturday morning with their kids and say, but I can't do this, or I can't do that. Where's this? And that feedback, and in our business, it's a strategy. We want to hear about the complaints, because what we're doing right, we don't have to know, because we're doing it. So I think if you stick to those principles, try and continuously change what you do, then you're fine. And then the other thing, of course, is don't buy land in a bad location.
Yeah.
That's a
just one
a bit of a trap.
Yeah. Although, I went out to this property the other day. I won't mention names, but it was a really bad location. I just can't imagine it being a good one, Yet, this guy's bought this thing. Okay, he probably got it for next to nothing as well. But he has built an enormous industrial park. Enormous. You can't believe it. And not 1 cent of gearing, He builds, you come to him, you want something, he starts building tomorrow. He says, my land, I build what I want, I was just like, this is the only time in my life that this location idea of real estate has actually been completely flipped on his head. He's like, I build cheaper and my land is cheaper, and therefore I'm a lot cheaper than the next guy. And this is what some clients do want. And so, it's just a different strategy. It's like being in advertising for you guys, but you focus on classifieds, like you just focus on designing little adverts for the classifieds. It's not high-end stuff, but someone's got to do it, Yeah. It's just a different strategy, I suppose.
I guess property is like that. If you've got the right product for the right price, the market will respond to it.
Yeah.
So it's quite an important element, though, is that you must understand the market that you are intending to bring to an area, because what's very different with residential is you're bringing families into an area, and you need to understand when that family is there, will they, number one, be able to sell the house again, because most people sell a property at least once or twice in their lifetime. So if you are in a position to sell the property again, that investment case must make sense. Yeah. And you must look at what amenities you've got in the area. And if you don't have, you need to incorporate that. I would think that residential is slightly more or less forgiving than industrial. But
I would tend to agree with you.
It's a magic formula when you get it right.
Yeah.
But that formula is rarely repeated somewhere else.
But now, Tommy, talking about somewhere else, at the moment, you got Cape Town selling for 60, 70, 80,000 Rand a square meter. If you talk about some of the CBD and Atlantic Seaboard, even more than this, okay, per square meter. Whereas in Johannesburg, you come and launch at 40,000 Rand a square meter and you're like grinding gears,
Yeah.
Surely the building cost is not that different, So where does this start to take place? Is it like you're saying the opportunity cost and the land whoever's holding the land just consumes the rest of the profit? Or is there a lot more profit there, or how do you see that market versus here? Obviously it's very competitive.
The land cost definitely has an influence on those prices. You can't reproduce a sea-facing property in Cape Town. If you've used it and you've built a residential, it's rare that it will be broken down and redeveloped. So the available land there is just reducing at a rapid pace. I do believe that there's some sort of level of profit increase in Cape Town, which is understandable because there's just so few opportunities there. And of course, you've got a very different clientele that you are servicing on that side. We've been debating it multiple times. We get multiple opportunities to go to Cape Town. But the reality is you need to understand your market very well in residential. And something that we pride ourselves in, at least in Gauteng, we really understand residential. We understand the locations. We understand the market very well. And it's a very deep market here. So it depends on how you want to measure your risk. From our point of view, to do 1 or 2 developments in Cape Town would be great. Is it sustainable? I don't know. Doing it 14, 15, 20 times a year in Johannesburg, we've got a team here, we understand it. It makes sense. But of course, every opportunity will bring its own benefits and disadvantages. So I would think that it would be better to some extent to go and develop in Cape Town. It's also, of course, a very different client who that you're developing for an overseas
completely
client, different. And you need to be rigged for that to do a proper job. So
there were a couple of stories in Cape Town in the CBD where guys start building and suddenly they hit a graveyard, or they've suddenly become like a religious area or something. I mean, that happens quite often in Cape Town, Less so in Joburg. I don't really hear those stories up here. I think maybe they were a little bit more circumspect with where they bury their people. But in Cape Town's a problem. You suddenly go in there and you find, something like that. I mean, that can really derail you. It's completely unexpected because you get your feasibility right, you get your funding right, you get your product right, you get your buyers, everything. And
it happens.
Yeah. How do you insure for that? I mean, does that just wipe out territory?
No, that's maybe one of the disadvantages if you develop in that area. It's got a very long and rich history, and I don't think the record keeping on a lot of the properties there are as up to date as you would want them to be. So there's an inherent risk in that. But ultimately, if you still own a property in Cape Town that's well located, when you've resolved all the problems that's on the property, the location is still great.
Yeah.
The opportunity is still there. So you don't really lose. Maybe it's just that it's going to be pushed out for a year or 2 years. But the fact that you own a magnificent property like that and you have to wait a bit, I mean, it is
what it is. Yeah.
Same.
I suppose you're not deploying capital at that point. It's still just the land that you own. Yeah.
But it all depends on. I mean, we've got a philosophy in our group. We don't get on land. So
really,
we don't like doing that. The best thing is when you develop land, own it. To cater for things like that is that at least then your capital is deployed, but you're not. There's no interest racking up somewhere for a land parcel. We like owning the land and then you control it. And if there's certain delays, town planning sometimes has got multiple delays. You have to wait for infrastructure, and then if interest starts racking up on the development, very quickly you'll find yourself in trouble. Yeah. I think that's quite an important element. And then when you deploy capital, then that's great. It's when you're halfway through the building and you stop. That's where it gets.
That's when there's a problem. Yeah,
and we've been fortunate. We've not had any obstacles like that. Yeah.
Tell me about you. How did you get into that business in the first place? Or did you have an interest in construction? Your family in construction? Did you study construction? How did you get this role today, 10 years later?
Yeah, so my background's in civil engineering, and I very quickly realized my dad's also a civil engineer. I realized I'm not a great engineer designing. I'd be much better with my hands dirty. So I sort of moved into the construction industry, and then I was deployed in one of the companies to Northwest Province, where I built 6,500 affordable houses there, and that's where I got a keen interest for residential. Realizing the demand for residential is massive. It's just a question of putting the right product in the market, and it really makes an impact. It's a nice business to be in. When you build something and someone buys it and they move into the house, it's quite an experience, and you never get tired of that, because for every person, the house that they move in is like a moment in their life. It's something they appreciate. It's most probably one of the biggest investments people would make, and whether the house is given to you through a grant or you paying for the house, the emotion involved in that is the same. Because if you think about it, that's security for your family. You've got a place to go back to every day. No one can tell you to move.
Part of your story.
It's your house. So that really attracted me to the industry. And then from there, I sort of evolved into the residential market. And I must say, there's an element of the marketing side of residential that I really enjoy. If we actually just a marketing company that coincidentally builds houses as well. That's a fun part. Residential is a quick-paced market. You've got a big marketing spend. You're client-facing. It certainly
has been done. If I look globally, even locally. I mean, Jess was in residential, focusing on that marketing aspect of it, right? So it's really like it's quite glamorous compared to what we do in commercial. Certainly,
Yeah.
it's like quite glamorous because you're actually going into some of these beautiful homes and going to go look around and and through every aspect and through every level, because one person's beautiful home is not big enough for the next person, and so there are all these different levels. You've got to kind of communicate with the people that you're selling to, I suppose. So how do you do that? Like, how do you go? Who's going to create the brand around this development that we're taking to market? Or where are you finding that inspiration? And also, how are you finding the different channel approaches evolving from 10 years ago?
The story about every development mostly starts from the landowner. So we've been fortunate when you buy a parcel of land or the owner wants to develop it, they start telling you about the land and what they see in the property. And sometimes they say, no, I would like to call it cedar wood. Or so you've got a bit of a story behind it. And then you start building it, brainstorming it with your marketing team. And I mean, there's some brilliant marketing minds in the industry. We fortunately, because we spend so much time and effort and capex into marketing, we're attracting great talent in our business. And then from there, you evolve the story and you build it out and you really try and present it to a client in a way that sort of the market responds to. It's important. You think that a name's not important. In residential, it is. People want to know, what is the place going to be called like? What is the guardhouse going to look like? And create an identity so that people can identify whether they can see themselves in that sort of setup or not.
Sure.
And then part of that process, of course, is that ultimately you still need to deliver on the product that you are selling as a dream. And what we found in COVID was quite interesting. I found ourselves, I mean, that's long ago to talk about, but just how quickly this market has changed. We found ourselves 4 years ago where suddenly we realized we're not going to be client facing. We're all homebound and we need to sell. I think we had 800 units to sell. And we were brainstorming on Teams, which was a new experience for our team, talking over the internet with each other.
Yeah.
And I said to the guys, I picked up a newspaper this morning and the article said there that car sales are going through the roof. How is it possible that we can't sell houses, but they are selling cars?
Yeah.
They can't go to a dealership. What is different?
Yeah.
And then we started exploring this whole process of saying, but people are going online. You can see any car, any catalog, any color seat cover, any color car. You can change everything online on that vehicle, and then you can ultimately buy it and sign the documents electronically and move on. So I said to the team, well, let's use that as a challenge. Let's evolve. Let's try and sell our houses online. We did that as a business. We built a platform which we still use today. And it was a great success for our business. It was a great success story for us that you could actually sell houses like you're selling cars.
Yeah.
And that was a process. But what we are seeing recently is that in residential, people want that touch. They want to see the person. They want to know who's making the promise.
Yeah.
So you can do a certain component online and you can give people a certain understanding through a great render or a layout of a unit. But ultimately, people want to touch and feel, whether that's in a show house where they can go and see what do the finishes look like, but also have that engagement with the agent. If they've got questions and they want to know, how does the bond work? What about this? Do I have to apply? Can my wife apply with me? So people need that interaction. So I think where our business has evolved back to how it would work in real estate is that we've brought back the interaction between the agent and the buyer.
Yes.
And we like a specific way of training our agents, specifically because selling developer stock's very different to selling real estate just or second-hand residential unit. So
and what is that? Let's roll into a nutshell for.
So you'd laugh at, but I find the best agents for us has got an industrial background.
Oh, really?
We sort of profile that, and I think because industrial brokers have got unbelievable work ethic. To survive in the industrial, especially as a new entry into the market, you need to drive all the roads, phone all the industrial people, ask them, do you want to move space? So it's a really tough business, and they are not afraid to confront a client or speak to them or phone. That's fundamental in selling development stock. You need to be the proactive one. You can't be reactive and wait for a client. So I find the industrial brokers are exceptional in the residential space. They also, for a short stint, like coming to residential because it's just a different scenery and the stock's built and the client come to you. Where in industrial, you need to go and find them. But work ethic wise, you have to have a really great work ethic. You need to understand the contract law around selling a property, and you need to be able to give sound advice to a client to say, how do you fund it? How do you not fund it? And I think the largest thing is that relationship with that client spans over the construction period. So you sign up a unit and then you can't leave. That client is your client until you hand over that house. And during that period, you get buyer's remorse, or there's events happening in their lives and things change, and you need to advise them and say to them, listen, don't worry about this, let's do this, or let's reevaluate your financial position. There's a lot of things that evolve. So you need quite a unique...
And in that space, I mean, so obviously you're coming trusted advisor and you're developing this product. And like you say, maybe the idea is to have built a show house or a showroom, or, you can see the different kinds of, you can actually visually see the different types of cornices, or maybe the different products, the smeg kettle that you're going to put in the oven, or just get a bit of a feeling for it because it makes it tangible.
Absolutely.
Because we find in commercial and property in general, we're able to read plans quite easily. We're able to see we can just take down those walls. You could do this, get a better view, do that kind of thing. But it's very hard for anyone else to walk in and look at these plans, look at the picture that you give them, and then think, see this thing perfectly. You don't quite understand what is 3 meters between here and the wall. How close is this house going to be to me? All of those kind of things. They put a tree there. Is that like a big tree or a small tree? Or what is it? How big is this lounge? Is my couch going to fit in here? All of these things. So it's actually a huge thing to do, to go and build that thing out, I'd imagine, to put it in front of the people to touch.
There's a reason why we the best rated development company on Google, because specifically that when you're selling when you're selling anything that's not been made, you need to manage the expectation. And that process is quite important. So we tend to try and build a show house. It's a standard thing. We build it because then there's no uncertainty. They walk through the unit. They can see what they want. Of course, we are building the 4-bedroom house, not the 3-bedroom. We try and build our sort of best offering.
Yes.
But managing that expectation is key.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, is also part of the process is to tell someone you're building something that's built by hands. It's not made in a factory by a machine that does things within 2 millimeter perfection. You're building a house, it's built by real people, and anything that you're not happy with, you can fix. And I think as long as you give people that certainty that when they move in after 1 month in the unit and they go, this bottom drawer is not working well, or I don't like the way this staircase works, or as long as you've got that relationship through the agent with a client, you can fix anything. And it's more the commitment that you sell than the actual product, because in most cases residential do look the same. The only difference is who sells it and who builds it. And that's where you differentiate yourself in the market.
Speak to me about landscaping, because your group in general is quite big on this actually. Like if you go to any of these developments, even if you go look at the commercial developments in outside Waterfall, now I forget the name, I should know this. But if you go and look at these developments, beautiful landscaping, like really Hartford. Like really, really cool. You kind of feel like you're in a little bit of an oasis there. Speak to me about landscaping and how you look at it and how you build it. Do you have a team that does this, or why do you do palm trees instead of oak trees? Or
I think we're fortunate. One of the companies where our group chairman is the green fingers in the group. He's got an absolute passion for it, and that passion flows through everyone in the company, because it starts in our own office park. I don't know if you've been to our office park, but I mean it's an absolute paradise going there. And it's an investment that happens over a long period of time. You can't make an instant garden, and the moment you understand that is that you start small, but it will grow and it will carry on. I go back to our developments often, and then I realize, what a magnificent job we did in the landscaping. And ultimately, that's the one asset you invest in that keeps on giving for the client. So
it really does.
We skimp on landscaping at all. It's not our way. I think it ultimately only rewards a client in years to come. Maybe a good or bad thing, because they don't want to move on to a new unit because they're happy where they are. But training, very important. So we've got a manual. The manual was made by Tace. He made a manual. All the different trees, what grows, which ones are
Really, eh?
deciduous,
Wow.
which ones needs a lot of water, less water, what can go in the shade, what can't go in the shade. So the amount of time and education that he puts in the landscaping is what you can see in our products. And that runs through it's a golden thread through our group, the Apcon group. They love landscaping. They do a great job because it's something that keeps on giving.
It makes a development, in my opinion, it makes a development, a home, an apartment, whatever it is, fundamentally different to have good landscaping. It just feels good to be there. You know, if you've got your landscape,
a sense of ownership for it, that you care about it. That's definitely something landscaping's key.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that Tace put together a whole book. That's that's detail, eh?
We go write exams on it.
Classic. That's hilarious. Eh? Tell us about your Red Wall campaign, because that was a cool one and it's got a lot of press and it's a lot of hype behind it. Tell us about it. Who came up with it?
So it was actually Lauren on Strive's side. We were debating that we want to do something unique on that property because it's been standing on that corner with the big white walls for ages, not being able to develop. So we need to make a statement to say to people that there's something happening here. So they were saying, what are we going to do? And there was a lot of ideas. We're going to put a balloon there or do this or do that. Yeah. And Lauren said, well, you craft homes, you red. Why don't you just paint the wall red?
Brilliant.
I said, well, let's paint the wall red. That's a great idea. And I mean, the evolution of that campaign was amazing for us because initially it was really just to draw a bit of attention. And then suddenly we realized we've got the Good Thing guys commenting on his app saying, have you seen the red wall?
Yeah.
Next thing you got Ash Miller saying on her podcast saying, have you seen the red wall? And then a lot of people in the community, on the community groups, the Ratepayers Association, and events sort of overtook from itself. The funny thing is I saw a story once in one of the Facebook posts where someone said, I'm the Karen that they're talking about. I complain. And ironically, and I want to still tell her that, is that she actually wasn't the Karen. We thought about the Karen campaign before we had any complaints. So it was really pre-planned, but it took a massive momentum for us. And then going through the process, we realized that it's all good that we're doing this red wall, but how are we going to end it in a way that sort of makes sense? And that's where the blood drive idea came up, and we had a blood drive there, which was well received from the blood services. I think we had 120 people donate blood, which is a big event. Blood drives are well supported. It's not lesser supported non-profits in the country. So had a great success there. I think we had about 6,500 people giving their potential names for the competition. And it's so funny. I mean, to read what people write. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I can't say on it. But we had from the EFF headquarters to a KFC to a Porsche to it's quite radical suggestions. And very few people sort of made the connection, say that it's craft homes and we're going to do Bryanston Country Estate there, which I'm really looking forward to. I mean, how often do you think you're going to get a land assembly in Bryanston of 5.5 hectares? I mean, it's a dream to be able to develop it. So
when does that actually come online now?
We've got a launch event in October. We will have 2 show houses. So we're doing 90 odd freestanding luxury homes there. And then we're doing 160 apartments, also bespoke apartments. Great location. We've had a fantastic response to it in the market. But I think the fundamental thing for me is as a residential company to suddenly have people from different brands like Spa phoning and say, listen, I hope you guys don't mind, but we're going to go and do a Spa drop at the wall there. And then the next you've got Tabasco. Hilarious. I see on TikTok a video of the Tabasco guy claiming that it's them doing the campaign in the whole market. I mean, it was an exhilarating experience for us.
Brilliant.
To go through it. And again, the fundamental thing is that we're a residential company, but we're primarily a marketing company. And to be able to have an opportunity like that for our marketing team to actually exploit an opportunity like that was magnificent.
You guys have got to get the augmented reality on that thing. That would be really cool. Have you seen those things?
No, I haven't.
Like, for example, where they pour the Coca-Cola into the Cape Town Stadium, you can go and see it with your phone. So if you go with your phone and you look at the building, you can actually see through your phone's camera what's actually happening there. And you could create a million different things over that red wall. And it just drives people to the site to go and see it. I think that augmented reality is really, really cool.
To have momentum like that in the early stages of a development, I mean, that's what you want. You want attention. And I must say, largely, it was a positive response. And really to see stalwarts in the marketing industry commenting on our stuff and saying, guys, that was guerrilla marketing textbook, fantastic. I mean, you should see some of the youngsters, they all know the guys working at these big agencies and saying, wow, that's me. So I hope I can keep all of them. It's a hell of an exciting opportunity for us. And it worked out well. Maybe the best compliment we got through the whole process is someone that wrote on a post and says, listen, can you give me the contact details of the guys that painted that wall? Because the one day there was nothing and the next day the wall's red. And a lot of people saying, how are you painting with the white letters on the wall? And then the next day you paint over it again and then you paint white on it again. There must be like 20 layers of paint. It's like, no, it's a sticker. It's just a sticker. I mean, it took me 2 or 3 times to realize no one's painting. It's just a
really,
sticker.
Jesus.
So the team did exceptionally well.
Yeah.
What a great location to do that. I was wanting to do it on the Wendy Mechanics site, that wall as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So where do you see the next sort of 5 years of your business? What are you trying to take it to? And how do you think people are interacting? Are you going to focus more on your technology side in terms of sales? Is that somewhere you see it going, or is it just constantly making sure that your principles of business, because, again, I've interacted with your group, and when I say group, I mean, in the commercial side and the different aspects of the business. And there's definitely a very hard work ethic. The office opens way earlier than anyone would care to admit. I've been for a 7 meeting and it's pumping in there. Geez, what time do these guys go to sleep? What are those principles that run through craft from the group, from in craft, and is that what you're focusing on going forward? Or as a leader, what are the things that you hope that you see growing stronger and that are maintained as your almost values of the business in the next 5 years?
So I think a big focus for us, and I speak broadly for the group now, and more specifically in the residential side, is that we are finding that there's a lot of deterioration as far as services, electricity, water, sewer, all those most fundamental things that you require to live and survive. Those are becoming a massive focus, and we're trying to invest enough time and enough capex and energy and brain power into building more sustainable development. So on the residential side, when you can tell someone you've got a unit, you've got backup electricity, you've got backup water, and sell that, that's something that's lasting. So that's quite a big focus for us, is to sort of evolve quicker than what we are currently evolved.
So give me an example, in these, because these developments you're doing, this one over here, you're doing 300 units and some of them are bigger.
Yeah.
How do you actually put that all together? Are you building underground reservoirs for this water, or you JoJo tank space, or how do you actually see this coming together?
So it's easy on developments where you've got larger land parcels. So principally on let's call it on the electricity side, I think there's a misconception about backup electricity, is that backup electricity for us means you've got backup batteries. So when the power goes off and it's nighttime, there's electricity. That comes with a responsibility to manage 300 units electrical usage. You don't want someone to have all his geysers on, all the heaters on in his house, and then the neighbor is using the electricity sparingly. So on our side, it's really the management of the electricity, so that when you go into a period of no electricity, you can really just give the essential electricity in the unit priority.
And do you control this with a central brain?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So spending a lot of time in understanding what that means, and it's very different in retirement than it is, for example, in an apartment block. So spending a bit of time in that, the backup water is really looking.
Why is that, anecdotally?
So retirement's date's different. They tend to switch off the lights earlier than us youngsters. So during the day, they're actually the ideal client for solar, because they're active in the day.
With the TV on.
Everything's on in the day, and grandma's cooking and grandpa's in the garage. So their usage is better in that sense, where I would say people that tend to still work, they're at work during the day. So at night time, you get at home at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then it's kids
Bang, on.
The kids and get lunch boxes done, and that sort of, you need backup electricity from a battery point of view, which is unique in a residential development. Most developers do solar, and the solar supplements the electricity when there's sunshine. The real solution is actually to have that backup battery. And I mean, these batteries are massive. You can imagine how big a battery must be for a 300 unit development if you want to give them 5 or 6 hours of batteries. So
it's not a number of individual batteries.
it's
You've
a centralized battery system supplementing the actual main electricity cable that distributes into the units. And then having a electronic device that over Wi-Fi can switch on and switch off geysers, and obviously migrating completely to gas, having gas stoves where we can. So a lot of effort going into doing that. And then all the benefits you get having a green bond and giving clients that access. And then I think the second pillar of our business is we own a large land parcel in the east of Pretoria, Hazeldean, which we've been developing for the last 10, 15 years. And we see a lot of pipeline going. There's a massive amount of growth going out to the north, the east of Pretoria. It's called the new capital. So investing a lot of time into infrastructure, getting the right partners to develop the land parcel with us. I don't think no single developer to do that on your own. You must be a listed fund to have access to that sort of capital, but also to expedite it and move forward.
It is enormous. What's the size of that tract?
So we've developed about 200 hectares of it already. We've got another 600 hectares to go.
800 hectares in total.
There. We built the retail center. We're doing a new retail center. The Bryston is doing a new retail center start next year.
Yeah, hectare being 10,000 square meters. An acre being 4,000 square meters.
It's 30,000 houses still to go there. My grandkids will be building houses there.
Jeez, it's massive.
But a great land parcel, and it's the growth node in.
What's the story there? How did you get hold of this land?
So I'm a beneficiary of it. So that was negotiated before my time. I think still with Joe Pelser and Tyson Dave at the time. And Tinus Delport, they acquired the land and agreed with the Mallison family, that's the landowners there, 15, 16 years ago. So I'm a beneficiary of that. But I've got the responsibility to develop it. That's quite something to, especially with infrastructure. I mean, if you think about how it's supposed to work, is you're supposed to pay your bulk contributions and the council install the services. But that's not a reality. So now suddenly if you go and build a road, that's a 200 million rand check. And if you do a reservoir upgrade, that's a 100 million rand check. So it's big numbers, but it also brings big opportunity and concentration. And maybe the single greatest benefit there is that the infrastructure is new and you can manage it. So, and that's the future of residential.
Everything. You got a smart city, right?
You must, exactly. You need to make sure that when someone moves in, that their water will be connected, their electricity will be on, and the house is fit for purpose. The moment those things fall apart, then...
It's quite exciting to sit back and, because you've got to really think into the future for that. You've got to think, in terms of just town planning, like we're going to need a school here.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a big center, but we also need like a small one, a couple of restaurants. And how many cars are we going to have? Will we have cars in 30 years? Will we need charging stations? How are the street lights going to work here? We're going to put this all on a big brain. And how does that brain work? Because if you go back 15 years, a lot of that stuff wasn't here.
Yeah.
And even the stuff that is or was around at that stage, so old, with the technology that's available today, you can real time tell where the usage is, how it's going to tell you how to be more efficient, which is fascinating. So you've really got to think long term with what you're building there so that it's future proof, really. Yeah. Sustainable.
So I would say the biggest thing there is that it's not difficult to debate what it's going to be and what can you do and what is it going to look like. There's a lot of voices around the table giving their views, but ultimately somebody has to say this is what we're going to do. So I find the biggest responsibility in a large precinct development like that is that you decide what you're going to do and then you stick with it, but then be open-minded to change at any point in time. And maybe the single biggest difficult thing to change is your town planning, because when you've allocated a certain zoning and you've gone through an application and you're going to do retail there, and then tomorrow you want to do residential, that puts you back 2 years. And by the time you've done your 2-year process, then the market's changed again.
Yeah.
So I think it's future-proofing your town planning so that you can go left or right at the appropriate time, but also sticking to your guns and making a decision and saying, this is what we're going to do. And ultimately...
You mentioned that earlier, actually, a very similar statement as to you got to make a call and just go with it,
That's absolutely.
And I think that's a big part of business in general.
Yeah.
You actually got to stick to it, because it's actually half-assing it. In fact, it's Matthew McConaughey's thing. It's don't half-ass it, you know? And that's exactly the point. Just
Residential,
don't.
you'll see a lot of successful residential companies. You always find that there's a voice that decides what we're going to do. You have to do it because otherwise you keep on debating what you're going to do and you never get it done.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite an important thing is that somebody has to commit and somebody say, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, change.
Yeah.
That's don't
Let's go.
getting it wrong.
Yeah.
But not doing anything, that's scary.
Okay.
Because that doesn't make
What
sense.
an exciting space to be in. And you've had a great career and it sounds like you've got a lot ahead of you. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's been lekker to spend an hour chatting to you
Thanks for
and
the
just
opportunity.
talking through it. Yeah.
Us having a chat.
Brilliant. Nice to learn a lot more about your business too. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot going on there and I mean, exciting.
Awesome. Thanks.
Lekker, mate. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.